Hey there. Let's see. We're going to try to do something. Here's another one of the bonus classes. We'll talk about spawning NPCs without collisions. So, for those of you who want to tune in, check that out. Here we go. All right. So the idea is pretty simple. What you want to do is you want to be able to go to your game. Let's save that scene. And you have your game. You have your hero in your game. And what we want to do is something like this. Okay. Go ahead, play. And you will, hopefully in a second, if I remember to save things, boom, we see our collection of NPCs, and they're all fairly evenly distributed. It's pretty close actually. They're kind of tight in here. For good reason. I said, okay, within a range, this is the square that they're allowed to spawn, and you see there are definitely on top of one another. They have colliders and rigid bodies and so on, and so it's important to make sure they spawn evenly, because if you're not careful, they will bounce all over the place, especially if they have rigid bodies and physics and all kinds of things associated with them. So pay no attention to my glowing character here. That's just what he does. So let's talk about these NPCs here, and these are going to be important for our game as we go on. So what the NPCs are, first off, they're just little characters. They are, let's see, they are prefabs. And if we go in here, and here's our NPC. You see it's already defined. I just dragged him into the scene. And it is just also still from the Tiny RPG asset pack by Ensimus. And it's awesome. And they have a sprite renderer, they have a box collider and rigid body 2D, so they will be fully collision compliant. And the idea is to spawn them in the scene. Now, for the sake of simplicity, I put the hero in charge. So the hero's in charge right now. The hero is in the scene. And if we look at the hero's script, that's where it's all going down. That's where things are going to happen. So during the startup of our hero, the hero is going to populate NPCs. Okay, now NPCs are just another type of prefab, of course. So we declare them to be, or we declare the template to be public game object NPC prefab. And if we save that, we do wind up with that showing up in here. So we can see I've already dragged the NPC prefab to that, so the hero knows how to create, or it knows what an NPC looks like, at least. And then let's see what it does. All right, so it sits there, it knows about them now, and during start we call populate NPCs. And here's our populate function. There's lots of different ways to do this. There's lots of different ways to do this, and this is one of them. It's reasonably efficient. There are other ways with casts and so on, and checking. This one's one approach. So start here, check out some other approaches as well. So this is pretty straightforward. So populate NPC. First thing I do is I say, all right, let me have a temporary variable to put the game objects in. So every time I spawn, I'm going to spawn them into this temporary. I'm not really keeping track of them. I'm just throwing them into the scene. It'd be better if I kept track of them in a list or an array or something. But for now, we're just going to spawn lots of them. Okay. Now, this next step, I don't think I even need this next step anymore. Yeah, this is old. I don't need that. So let's get rid of that. This is even simpler then. All right. So the first thing I want to do is I want to say, okay, what spot do I want to spawn things in? Okay, what do I need to know about the things I'm going to spawn? Now, I can spawn them in any spot, but I also want to know basically how large are they? What kind of space are they going to take up once I throw them in the scene? Okay. Now, the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to base it on their collider. Okay. The prefab does have a box collider 2D on it. Okay, that's part of the rules here. There are ways to enforce that rule, but I'm just going to assume that to be the case. You can look up other ways to require certain components, but for here, we're just going to say get the component box collider 2D. And one of the things that I can find out about the box collider 2D is the size. That's the important thing, right? So I'm going to get a vector 2, which reflects the size of the box collider. I'm going to divide it in half. Okay, so that gives me the extents. It's going to be, basically half of it is to the left, half of it is to the right, half of it's up, half of it's down in terms of those dimensions, right? So it's centered at a certain position, and the extents are, how far up and left and right and so on from that position. All right, so that's giving me the size of the box that, or the extents of the box that I want to worry about. All right. Now next here, I've just arbitrarily said, give me 32 NPCs. All right, so I have an integer I. That's going to be a simple loop, and I'm going to loop through that 32 times to create lots of NPCs. So inside here, I have a, whoops. Hopefully that didn't wind up being too much. I'll have to see who hears about that. Anyway, okay. So you see this temp pos, and that is the temporary position that we want to calculate. Okay. And so we have that as a temporary, and then we have this do while loop, which is important. The do while loop basically says, try to create a new position for that, and then each time you're going to try, and if it succeeds, you're going to fall through here. If you don't succeed, you try again, right? That's why we have this do while loop in here, to try a bunch of times to see what happens, right? So we do this. We make sure we want to run through at least once. The first time we say do, and we calculate temp pos, which is a random position, and it's going to be randomly, it has -5 to +5 for each of the x and y components. And we use that set to temp. And then here's the magic. We say while physics2d dot overlap box temp position c size 0, there's no rotation. As long as that does not equal null, right? If that does not equal null, it means that we got some collider back that overlaps this box. So we're just using the global physics2d, saying, okay, does anything overlap with this box? And if so, well, it's just going to run through the while loop again, right? So it's going to keep going through there, potentially a bunch of times. It shouldn't be infinite. It should be possible to find, it'd be bad if I said, okay, within this area, my area is basically 10 by 10, so there should be room for, I don't know, about 100 of these things in there. So they should be able to find space. Maybe it's not 100, maybe it's 50 or something like that. So it should be able to find space for all of them. So it's going to run through there a bunch of times until it does find us a location that doesn't overlap with a collider. The moment it does that, then it says, okay, that temporary position, that's okay to use. So we then say temp instantiate. So we instantiate an object, and we really, actually, now that I look at it, you don't even need this temp because we're not doing anything with it. If we wanted to keep track of it, put it in an array, put it in a list, something, we'd use that. But for now, I could actually even just take that out, simplify this some more there, and get rid of temp if you wanted to. Now they're completely sort of orphaned objects. And we're going to put them, we're going to instantiate them according to the NPC prefab. We're going to put them at that position, and we're not going to rotate them. We're going to say, okay, quaternity and identity. So that runs 32 times, gives us 32 NPCs that do not overlap with anything else in the scene. That's it for now. Okay, hopefully that helps something. Take care. Bye.